After 13 years of civil war, which began in July 2011, Syria's opposition militias sensed an opportunity to weaken President Bashar al-Assad's grip on power. About 6 months into this plan, rebel group HTS gained weapons like the TB2 drones, Kirpi armored fighting vehicle, and military equipment from Turkey, made the bold move to strike on Aleppo and Damascus. But this is the Middle East, and there are more than 10 rebels groups fighting each other, like the Islamic State, also known as Daesh. It still remains active and continues to seek opportunities to regain territory. This spring, the United States military, which supports the Syrian Kurds, has been conducting airstrikes against Islamic State-controlled areas using aircraft, such as the Boeing B-52 Stratofortress, the McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle, and the A-10 Thunderbolt, hitting almost 75 strikes in one day. We will also explore in detail how Bashar al-Assad escaped Syria, examining the timeline of events and the circumstances that caused his plane to lose altitude while flying over the Mediterranean Sea. All this and more in the video ahead. Why did Bashar al-Assad lose to the rebels? There are multiple key scenarios that explain why Bashar al-Assad has found himself in this precarious situation. These scenarios involve his powerful allies Russia, Israel, Iran, and Hezbollah, and the complex dynamics that extend beyond Syria's borders. The role of international powers. From the beginning of the Syrian conflict, no group has operated in isolation. External and international powers have been deeply involved, providing military, financial, and logistical support. The airstrikes in Idlib, for instance, have primarily been carried out by Russian aircraft, including advanced models like the MiG-29 and Sukhoi jets. Russia, under Vladimir Putin, has been a longtime ally of Assad, offering critical air support and diplomatic backing. Similarly, Iran and its proxy group in Lebanon, Hezbollah, have played significant roles in bolstering Assad's forces. Hezbollah has supplied fighters and military resources for years, often turning the tide in key battles. However, Bashar al-Assad is now facing challenges even with these allies. In Scenario 1, Hezbollah, the most powerful non-state army having just agreed to a fragile ceasefire with Israel after over a year of intense fighting, is grappling with a severely weakened military capacity. This ceasefire coincided with the HTS Hayat Tahrir al-Sham attack on Aleppo, leaving Hezbollah unable or unwilling to divert forces to assist Bashar al-Assad. Reports suggest that Hezbollah currently has no plans to redeploy fighters to Syria, signaling a significant reduction in its involvement. Let's take a look at Scenario 2 with Iran's divided attention. Iran, another critical ally, has also been stretched thin. While Iranian militias have crossed the border from Iraq to aid Assad, Iran itself is embroiled in its ongoing conflict with Israel. This distraction limits the extent of support Iran can provide, leaving Assad with fewer reliable options. And finally, Russia's reduced engagement. Perhaps the most notable shift has come from Russia. During the peak of the Syrian war, Russian air power was instrumental in securing Bashar al-Assad's victories against rebel forces. This support not only cemented Assad's position but also granted Moscow strategic influence in the Middle East, including air bases and its only naval port in the Mediterranean. However, circumstances have changed. Russia has been deeply entangled in its own war in Ukraine for nearly 3 years, diverting much of its military focus, including ground forces and air power. This diversion was evident in the delayed Russian response to the recent attack in Aleppo. Additionally, reports indicate that Moscow has withdrawn some ships from Syrian naval bases, signaling a decline in its overall commitment to Syria. The failure of this scenario led to this diminished support has left Assad vulnerable, creating an opportunity for groups like HTS to gain ground. HTS has made rapid and dramatic advances, even surprising themselves with their success. Their offensive strategies, once aimed at survival, have evolved into a calculated push to seize key territories like Aleppo and Hama. This led to the rebels' renewed momentum. HTS's success has placed the Syrian regime on the defensive, marking a pivotal moment in the conflict. The capture of Hama is particularly significant. It is the first time the city has fallen out of government control since the war began in 2011. This development poses an existential threat to Assad's regime, underscoring its fragility in the face of diminishing external support. Turkey's calculations. Adding another layer of complexity is Turkey, under President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Turkey's involvement in Syria has evolved, with Erdogan strategically leveraging the fighting to advance his country's interests. Finally, the Syrian Kurds, who control a significant portion of Syrian territory, along with support from the United States military, have made it nearly impossible for Syrian government forces to breach their defensive lines. With limited support from his traditional allies and mounting pressure from opposition forces, Bashar al-Assad's regime is navigating uncharted territory. The next phase of the conflict will likely be determined as much by dynamics within Syria as by developments in the broader region. Let's analyze our data to determine whether Bashar al-Assad's plane crashed or not. On Sunday, the 8th of November 2024, Bashar al-Assad departed on a Syrian Air Ilyushin 76T cargo plane, a Russian-made aircraft, which took off from Damascus airport at 3:59 local time, 1:59 GMT, with an undisclosed destination. Two unnamed senior Syrian army officers stated that Bashar al-Assad had boarded the plane early on Sunday at Damascus airport. Initially, the aircraft flew towards the Mediterranean coast, a region considered a stronghold of Bashar al-Assad's Alawite sect. This area is also home to two significant Russian military bases, the Maimim Air Base and the naval base in Tartus. However, after flying over Homs, the plane abruptly changed course, making a U-turn and heading eastwards, while simultaneously losing altitude. The plane's signal was lost at around 4:39, which is 2:39 Greenwich Mean Time, when it was approximately 13 kilometers, which is 8 miles west of Homs, and flying at an altitude of only 1,625 feet, which translates to around 495 meters. Why did the plane lose altitude? The aircraft was reportedly old, equipped with an outdated transponder, which may have resulted in incomplete or inaccurate data. Furthermore, it was flying in a region known for GPS jamming, which could have affected signal accuracy. Additionally, the flight tracker was unaware of any nearby airports at the location where the signal was lost. Despite this, Bashar al-Assad's plane safely landed in Russia, putting an end to rumors and conspiracy theories about a possible crash. To simplify this complicated civil war, let's draw a line and divide each side. On one side, Iran, Russia, and Hezbollah support the Bashar al-Assad regime. On the other side, the US government supports the Kurds. Just below, we have another group, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar, which support the rebel groups. Then there's ISIS, and everyone seems to be fighting against them. However, Turkey is also fighting against the Kurds, which creates a very confusing scenario. To provide a clearer picture of Syria's complex and fragmented conflict, it is crucial to understand the territorial control among the key players on the ground. Four primary factions dominate different areas of the country, each backed by varying external powers and ideologies. The Syrian government forces, marked in red on many conflict maps, represent the Bashar al-Assad regime's primary military apparatus. These forces are supported by the National Defense Forces, a pro-government paramilitary group. The Assad regime also benefits from the significant backing of Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah, whose combined efforts have fortified and sustained its control over large swaths of territory, particularly in central and western Syria. The Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, represented in yellow, consists largely of Kurdish fighters. This group, backed by the United States, controls much of eastern Syria, including areas rich in oil reserves. The SDF has played a critical role in the fight against ISIS and continues to manage regions under its control with the support of its international allies. HTS and other allied rebel factions, shown in green, operate primarily in the northwest. HTS, an evolution of the al-Nusra Front, previously aligned with al-Qaeda until severing ties in 2016, remains a dominant force in this region. Despite internal divisions, HTS maintains significant influence over the territories it controls. In the north, Turkish-backed rebel forces, including the Syrian National Army, hold ground along the Turkish border. Turkey has supported these groups as part of its broader strategy to counter Kurdish influence and establish a buffer zone. These areas, often marked in different shades of green, reflect Turkey's active involvement in the Syrian conflict. Meanwhile, these patches, the Islamic State or Daesh-dominated territory, still persist in some isolated desert regions, a stark reminder that the group's threat has not been entirely eradicated. Finally, in the south, additional rebel groups maintain a presence, and the Golan Heights adds a further layer of complexity. Israel claims sovereignty over this territory, citing its capture during the 1967 Six-Day War, while Arab nations and the broader international community often regard it as occupied territory. Understanding these dynamics is key to grasping the intricacies of Syria's civil war. As an engineering channel, we also made the secrets behind this stealth bomber, so check this out and do subscribe to not miss a beat.